These 5 disastrously designed cars didn't just fail, they killed, shocked, and rewrote automotive history. 1. The Ford Pinto. Imagine driving a car knowing that a simple fender bender could turn your vehicle into a fireball. That was the reality for Ford Pinto owners in the 1970s. Looking at this compact car, you'd never guess its dark secret. A fuel tank positioned so poorly that even low-speed rear-end collisions could cause it to rupture and explode. But here's where this story goes from bad to truly evil. Ford knew about this problem. They weren't just aware. They had crash-tested the Pinto more than 40 times before it went on sale, and the fuel tank ruptured in every single test performed above 25 miles per hour. Did they fix it? Nope. Now here's where things get really disturbing. Internal documents from Ford show that their own engineers had already come up with multiple safety solutions to fix the fuel tank issue. One option was to install a nylon bladder inside the tank. That would have cost them just about $5 to $8 per car. Another solution was even cheaper, adding some structural protection in the rear, which would have only added $4.20 to the cost of each vehicle. And get this, the cheapest fix of all was simply placing a plastic baffle between the fuel tank and the differential. That tiny upgrade? Just $1. One single dollar per car could have made a life or death difference. But instead of protecting people, Ford chose profit. Instead, Ford executives made perhaps the most cold-blooded decision in automotive history. They created a cost-benefit analysis comparing the expense of these safety improvements against the estimated cost of human lives lost in fiery crashes. The verdict? It would be cheaper to pay settlements to burn victims and their families than to fix the car. While the Pinto continued to explode on American roads, Ford fought against recalls until they couldn't anymore. Between just June 9, 1978, and when parts finally became available to repair the 2.2 million affected vehicles, 6 more people died in Pinto fires. The Pinto became known as the car that put a price tag on human life, about $200,000 per death in Ford's infamous calculations. 2. The Trabant. While Americans were dying in Pintos, East Germans were risking their lives in something potentially worse. The Trabant, possibly the most dangerous mass-produced car of the Cold War era. This communist people's car wasn't just poorly made, it was barely a car at all. Let's start with what it was made of. Duroplast, essentially plastic, reinforced with cotton and wood fibers. Yes, you read that correctly. Your car was partially made of compressed cotton. In the West, this vehicle would never have been approved for production, but behind the Iron Curtain, the Trabant rolled off assembly lines from 1957 to 1991, becoming a symbol of Eastern Bloc innovation, or lack thereof. The Trabant's deadliest feature? Engineers placed the fuel tank directly above the engine, creating an extreme fire risky in frontal collisions. Early models lacked even the most basic safety features like brake lights and turn signals. Its 2-stroke engine produced so much toxic smoke that driving behind a Trabant meant breathing in a constant cloud of pollution. Time magazine described it as the most ineffective bit of French engineering since the Maginot Line, while others called it a hollow lie of a car constructed of recycled worthlessness. The Trabant wasn't just a lemon, it was a potential death trap disguised as innovation, taking communist-era cost-cutting to deadly extremes. 3. The Porsche Carrera GT. When Paul Walker, star of the Fast and Furious franchise, died in a fiery crash in 2013, the irony wasn't lost on anyone. But what many didn't realize was that he was riding in one of the most notoriously dangerous modern supercars ever built, the Porsche Carrera GT. This wasn't just any sports car. With its 5.7-liter V10 engine producing 603 horsepower and a top speed of 208 miles per hour, it was what car experts call a hypercar. The Carrera GT was essentially a race car that somehow got approved for street use. Even professional drivers found it terrifying. "This was not a car for novices," said Eddie Alterman, editor-in-chief of Car and Driver magazine. Actually, the Carrera GT program began as a racing program. Todd Trimble, an exotic car mechanic, added, "It's a pure racer's car. You really need to know what you're doing when you drive them, and a lot of people are learning the hard way." The most shocking revelation came during a lawsuit following a crash at California Speedway in 2006. Porsche testified under oath that the Carrera GT was intentionally designed to be as close to a race car as we could get away with. It was a car that never should have been sold to the public. In response to Walker's death, Porsche essentially blamed the victim, stating, "The perils, risk, and danger were open and obvious and known to him, and he chose to conduct himself in a manner so as to expose himself to such perils, dangers, and risks, thus assuming all the risks involved in using the vehicle." 4. The Audi 5000. Imagine sitting at a stoplight, your foot firmly on the brake, when suddenly your car lunges forward uncontrollably. For nearly 700 Audi 5000 owners between 1978 and 1986, this nightmare scenario became reality. What made the Audi 5000 unique was its unexplainable tendency to shift into gear and accelerate on its own with no warning. The problem became so notorious that it even appeared on 60 Minutes in 1986, bringing national attention to the issue. Victims reported pressing the brake pedal only to have the car surge forward with unexpected power. In all, nearly 700 Audi 5000 sudden acceleration accidents have been reported, meaning that nearly 1 out of 500 Audi 5000 automatics has already had a runaway accident. At least 6 people have been killed in Audi sudden acceleration accidents. Volkswagen of America, which owned Audi, initially denied responsibility. They claimed driver error was to blame, that drivers were mistakenly pressing the accelerator instead of the brake. But the evidence was overwhelming. VWOA eventually recalled the vehicles 3 separate times, but only after hundreds of accidents and dozens of injuries. By 1987, Audi was forced to install transmission interlocks in all their vehicles. The controversy damaged Audi's reputation so severely that their U.S. sales plummeted from 74,000 in 1985 to just 12,000 by 1991. Today, transmission interlocks are mandatory in all new vehicles, a safety feature born from tragedy. 5. The Chevrolet Corvair. Unsafe at any speed. With those 4 words, Ralph Nader forever changed the automotive industry and made the Chevrolet Corvair infamous. This rear-engine compact car, produced from 1960 to 1969, had a deadly secret hiding beneath its stylish exterior. Marketed as a cross between a Corvette and a Bel Air, the Corvair made a splash when released in 1960. However, it was soon discovered to be dangerously unstable at high speeds due to a fatal flaw in its design. The rear-engine layout and swing-axle suspension created unpredictable handling characteristics that could cause the car to suddenly spin out without warning. Owner feedback often included phrases like "spins out like a top" and "please save me." For drivers, every turn became a potential death trap. In 1962, the danger became tragically clear when actor Ernie Kovacs lost control of his Corvair and died upon impact with a lamppost. What made the Chevy Corvair so treacherous wasn't just one flaw. It was a deadly combination of design choices that turned this car into a rolling hazard. First off, it had a rear-mounted engine, which threw off the weight distribution. Most of the car's weight was in the back, making it behave unpredictably, especially in emergency situations. Then there was the swing axle suspension, a design that could actually cause the rear wheels to tuck under the car during sharp turns. Imagine taking a corner and suddenly your car starts to collapse inward on itself. That's what drivers were dealing with. On top of that, the Corvair needed wildly different air pressures in the front and rear tires to stay balanced. If a driver didn't follow that to the letter, the handling could go from sketchy to downright dangerous. And early models didn't even come with a stabilizer bar, a basic component that helps keep the car stable during turns. Without it, this thing was basically a trap waiting for spring. General Motors knew about these problems but chose not to address them, leading Ralph Nader to write his groundbreaking book that exposed the Corvair and the auto industry's disregard for safety. The resulting outcry led to congressional hearings and eventually the creation of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. While GM added some safety improvements in later models, the damage was done. The Corvair was discontinued in 1969, but its legacy lives on in the safety regulations that now protect every driver. Before we wrap up, it's important to remember the deadly cars that ruled America's roads in the 1950s. Models like the Dodge Firedome, Buick Special, and Ford Thunderbird looked stylish but sacrificed safety. These vehicles had no seatbelts, metal dashboards with sharp edges, rigid steering columns, no crumple zones, and unreliable drum brakes, making crashes often fatal. Modern crash tests show their cabins deform catastrophically even at low speeds. While today's cars boast advanced safety tech, rising distracted driving and speeding still fuel accidents. These historic dangers remind us that true automotive progress means valuing human life over style and profit. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more such content.